Welcome once more to our broadcast, Jacksonville for Life. I am Tom Master, sitting in for Brad Straley. Jacksonville for Life is a tax-exempt non-profit organization as defined under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, specifically dedicated to saving babies, to helping mothers and families, and to promoting a culture of life in our community. We become a pro-life ministry after much prayer back in January of 2003. Brad and I met downtown at the annual March for Life around the federal courthouse, which is sponsored by Catholics United for Life. Prayers were answered when opportunities arose in 2004 to go online with our pro-life message, then a weekly television show, and now a pro-life radio program that airs 4 times a week. As an introduction to today's program, and before I introduce our astute guests today, I want to set the focus for our efforts by referring to material from a book by Michael Koren, Why Catholics Are Right. He champions Catholic leadership in the pro-life battle, but we, of course, know well how wonderfully we are joined and inspired by many others devoted people. Here are the words of Mr. Koren. Catholics talk about a great deal that is of life matters, and one that is criticized it for the most part. In fact, they are criticized for being obsessed with life because of being a single-minded extremist, as the culture defines us. Actually, such criticisms are usually nothing more than digressions or attempts to avoid the subject and dismiss people discussing it. We talk about the issues of life and sexuality because they matter. In a better world, the subject we're about to discuss here would be embraced by everybody, except it's left to Christians and to Roman Catholic Church in particular to take a stand and to speak up for the most vulnerable people, the unborn, the elderly, the ill and handicapped, the most marginalized. And, of course, Catholics believe that life begins at conception and ends at natural death. We know that this belief runs directly and increasingly contradictory to the drift of Western society. These are the words of Mr. Koren, by the way. Roman Catholicism is also inherently connected to and exponent of natural law. Nature is God-given, and the laws of nature are immutable and real, as are the laws of gravity. It is no way surprising that the Church champions unborn children or those threatened by euthanasia, because nature tells us when life begins and when it ends. There are also, however, biblical references to the unborn. Psalm 39, for example. For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. So with those words, let us begin our discussion today, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Margie Higgins, National Right to Life representative locally, and Colleen Garson. Ladies, welcome. Please give us a rundown on your efforts in the locally, particularly with regard to Respect Life Matters. Marjorie?
Well, my connection is with National Right to Life and as a volunteer on the Respect Life Committee at St. Luke out in Middleburg. What I'd like to remind people of is 2016 and as we go into 2017. But in 2016, we started with the March for Life in Washington, D.C. and a blizzard. But the blizzard turned out to be a blessing because there was far more publicity about the march because of the buses getting stuck, building altars of ice and celebrating Mass along the side of the road that just caught the imagination of those in wonderment, but those who are faithful fully understood.
How long have you been involved with the National Right to Life?
Since 1985. 1985.
Do you go to that march particularly?
Yes, most years. Now, legislatively, National Right to Life does education, legislation, political activity, and policy. And as far as legislation, at the state levels, we've had a ban on dismemberment abortions, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and West Virginia. And then we also have Ohio, South Carolina, and South Dakota joining 12 states, passing the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, meaning banning abortions after the unborn baby can feel pain, which is at about 20 weeks, but now we're finding maybe it's more like 17 and even possibly 8. God created the human being all at one time, just different sizes. We have the Hyde Amendment that will be coming back up. Almost soon to be former President Obama was very much opposed to it, but we've managed to keep it. Then we had an election. And what an election it was. It was up and down roller coaster. Nobody could have predicted how it was going to turn out, even as we were all in the middle of it. But when Wednesday morning came, it was not President Hillary, it was President Donald Trump. And my husband happened to be at adoration at 3 o'clock Wednesday morning, and as he was praying before the Blessed Sacrament, fireworks were going off in Orange Park, and his prayer partner said, "What on earth is that?" He said, "I do believe that's Clay County celebrating the election of Donald Trump." And so it was a wonderful election for pro-lifers. Now, I'd also like to point out that as far as I know, every single appointee that we know of is pro-life under the Donald Trump. So that was a huge. We also took 2/3 of all state legislative bodies and governorships. The places where we don't have those under pro-life influence yet are, believe it or not, the Northeast and the far left coast, West Coast. Right, yeah, the Pacific Coast, Oregon, Washington, California.
Are you going to discuss the ramifications of the election, the possible benefits of...
At the state level, you can bet that our affiliates are going to push hard for more protective legislation because they've got the votes. They've got their state house, their state senate, and their state governorships. And we have found that even in states like West Virginia that used to be solid Democrat, they are now solid red, and they are pushing hard for new protective legislation. Just a funny little reminder. Remember the Super Bowl in 2016 and the Doritos commercial?
Yeah.
With the, digital, the unborn baby reaching forward to the Doritos. When I saw that, I couldn't stop laughing, but the pro-aborts just couldn't stop scowling because, according to them, it humanized the fetus. Well, guess what? The baby is human, and it was a very funny. And we can expect more pro-life legislation at the federal level too, because now we have a president who will sign it. So we are very hopeful in terms of the of pro-life legislation, both at state and federal levels.
That indicates too that the judges, coming in,
yes,
would be a benefit to us if they are nominated and approved, particularly on the national level, Supreme Court.
The federal level, absolutely. But what was interesting is that Obama's the damage that he could have done with Obamacare was most often stopped at lower court levels, and Donald Trump now has 100 vacancies to fill. So let us fill them all with good, pro-life thinking judges who read the law as the law is written, not as they feel. And so, and if I could add one thing. In 2017, all of you who have smartphones, and that's almost everybody, start putting into your cell phones the phone numbers of your state representatives, your state senators, and your congressional representative and your 2 U.S. senators. Put them in. And then put in the phone numbers of your local crisis pregnancy centers. And in Jacksonville, we've got a bunch of them. And in Clay County, we have 2 of them. So put them in your phone number, in your contacts. And when you run into somebody who needs help, go into your phone and say, call this number. Yeah, that's probably the one thing that you could do that will keep you best prepared.
Later in the program, we'll be speaking about the resources that will help you to participate, to get involved in the pro-life scene, as it were, in various ways. I want to call upon Colleen now to give a rundown on her ministry, the history of her efforts here, particularly here in the area of Jacksonville. Colleen.
Yes, it's so nice to be with you guys again. I feel like I'm coming home because I know everybody so well, but it's thank you so much for having me. I am the founder and the CEO of Lifeline Resources, which is a pregnancy resource center located on Southside Boulevard in Jacksonville.
How long have you had that?
We've actually been open 6 years as of November 1st. On All Saints Day, we opened up. I try to do everything strategically like that, call down the blessings of the Lord on what we're doing. But it's very interesting, actually, how it's began. I started in the pro-life movement actually in Buffalo, New York. And I think the Lord has been preparing me all along because I was one of those moms. I had a little bit too much to drink one night and wasn't myself. And so I can really get into the heart of these girls. I was so frightened because good Catholic girl, went to Mass every day, did everything I was supposed to do, Catholic school my whole life. And I got a little bit too much to drink and was mad at my boyfriend at the time, so it was kind of crazy. But I have been that mom. I was so frightened about this whole thing, didn't want to disappoint my parents, that I actually told my parents that I was pregnant on March 1st, and my daughter was born March 21st. That's being scared. And so I've been in these places. I know how to talk to these girls, and I feel for them because I've been there. I've stand in cheese lines and food lines for my kids. I've done all that. So I've been where they are. I know how frightened they are. So I really hold their hands when I walk the whole walk with them. And in fact, I tell them I'm like gum on an old shoe. You know, you're never going to get rid of me. You know, I'm like one of those. I'm one of those. I have girls that I've talked to for years because originally, I was the director at the Women's Help Center, which is for 10 years. It was a wonderful organization.
That goes back quite a few years.
Oh,
too.
yeah. And they do a tremendous job, and they're right on the front lines. They're right there in between the abortion providers. And, all my friends are still there and whatever. But unfortunately, I'm a widow, too, and I was called away because my mom came down with Alzheimer's and dementia. So I pulled away and to take care of my mom, because mom took care of me, and I took care of my mom. And while I was in that process, it came forth that I could no longer care for her at home. I didn't have the money to be able to do it, and so she went into a nursing facility close by. Though Father Kelly helped me to get her real close by at the house, so I could see her every day. And one night, the Lord actually, I call it a midnight visiting. I actually woke up, grabbed my Bible, picked it up, and it was the story of Peter walking on the water and coming to Jesus. And I heard in my head, okay, Colleen, it's time to go back and help mommies and babies again. And as I'm sitting there on my bed, I'm thinking, I'm going crazy. This can't be happening, because he calls the most unlikely people. And believe me, I am the most unlikely person. So I said, okay, Lord, I said, if you want me to do this, I said one thing. I said, you're going to have to bring people to me. And second of all, I said, I don't want to touch any of the donors at the Women's Help Center because we're all wanted and we're all needed.
They have their mission also.
They do too. And we work hand in hand. And what the Lord placed on my heart, and as Father Pavone has said, the second most important place to be after being right there on the front lines in the abortion clinic is to be a presence in the colleges and in the high schools. And that's our main focus, is because you can't be all things to all people. So they're doing a great job. They've done it for years. I know I was there, and I know what they do. And I said, okay, Lord, okay, you're going to have to find me a place. I've never started anything from scratch. I'm totally at your mercy. And we found a place to be. Come to find out, the gentleman who owns the building, who wants to remain anonymous, is helped us out. We have reduced rent there because we're all volunteers. None of the money that's donated actually goes to any kind of salary or anything like that. It's all goes right to the...
And you have a sonogram?
We have a sonogram, yes. We're at the Knights of Columbus, God bless them, after a year, we had a sonogram machine. And I'm proud to say we have only lost one baby since we've been there in 6 years.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It is amazing. And so, God is with us. I mean, He ordained this ministry.
Well, what is the frequency of the visitations there? What's the volume of
people? Well, it's increasing tremendously. Right now, I would say we probably do about maybe 100, 150 girls a month. We've given away over 30,000 baby items. We're still growing. We have a very small place.
How does the word get out with regard to your ministry?
Well, basically, it's places like this. We actually go and talk to churches and organizations, and basically, it's just word of mouth. A lot of it is word of mouth, because once the girls get out there and they deal with you, you get a lot of people coming in. We've also been taught. We go and talk to churches and things like that.
So it's word of mouth, as you say.
Basically, is the main thing, and we're only there Monday through Friday 9 to 1 because that's what we can afford.
But you still need financial support.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
everything is financial support. I mean, because we don't really get any grants. We are involved with Florida Pregnancy Support Services, which was started by Governor Bush when he was in, because he wanted to start an effort to combat the money that was going to Planned Parenthood. And we worked with him, and now the program is doing so well that they're starting to be able to reimburse doctors to actually take some of these women for well visits. That's just something that's in a pilot program right now.
Explain that, please?
It's, with the Florida Pregnancy Support Services, we actually get money for, small money for counseling women that come in for pregnancy. But now the program is expanding, and we're under the Department of Health. When Governor Bush was there, it was all under his, his administration. But when he left, we weren't sure if the program was going to stay in force, naturally, because they always make you jump through hoops, and it's, a very secular environment and not exactly pro-life. So, but it has survived. And because we pick up where a lot of different organizations leave off. So we're doing that, and then they're now starting with to do a wellness visit for women that aren't pregnant but actually don't have insurance because of Obamacare, because of the people that can't afford the Obamacare, it's a program that's just in a pilot right now. So
that money comes to you from the federal level?
No, it comes from the state level.
From the state level.
Yeah, and it's a small amount. I mean, we don't, maybe.
So you'd welcome any donations by our listeners?
Any donations, yes. Like I said, we're a volunteer staff, and we're only there because of the grace of the donors. So, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a wonderful program that you have, and nearly a lifelong effort that you've been making to give service to the ladies of our community, to anyone who wants to volunteer. What about the volunteer?
Oh, we can always use volunteers, and right now, like I said, we can always use volunteers. So if anybody wants to volunteer, please call us at 904-642-9000. That's 904-642-9000, and we're at 3733 Southside Boulevard, Suite 8, Jacksonville. We're right on Southside, very close to beach. And if anybody wants to come by, I'd be glad to give them the cook's tour and show them exactly what we do and meet some of the volunteers. And we could always use volunteers for the angel closet and things like that. So,
did you say you had a website?
Yes, we do. It's www.jacksonvillepregnancy.org. And also www.scaredandpregnant.org. We have two sites. We have one that is actually for, the regular public, and then we have one that's definitely for the clients.
Well, it's really great to have you ladies here. And as we continue our broadcast today, we want to bring to your attention information relative to the ProLife Resources locally and nationwide. I'm particularly concerned, of course, and interested that we give support to us as Jacksonville for Life. And that website is jacksonvilleforlife.org. By the way, we have a phone number, 904-703-6277. Also, the Diocesan Center for Family Life has their website and calendar. That's at dcfl.org. And many of us are familiar and know the people there, Mary Catherine Damon and Mike Day. Another source that I particularly like is lifenews.com. That provides for us national and international news. And I would advise you to the listening people to pick up on that Life News that gives an array of information that is going on. It's a wonderful particularly wonderfully strong pro-life news resource. And again, we can mention once more the pro-life services locally here. And Colleen, we addressed the issue that the services that you provide.
Right.
But also, we all have pro-life activities and participation locally. There's a March for Life in Jacksonville in January. The March for Life in, of course, St. Augustine, and also the National Right to Life. And Marjorie, you had some additional information that you wanted to provide?
Yes, the National Right to Life website is www.nrlc.org, and that's where you go to find out who exactly is your congressman, who are your 2 U.S. senators, what are their phone numbers. And you want to call these people when there's any legislation on the horizon, because they need to hear from you that you support the pro-life legislation. So plug those numbers into your cell phone once you find out.
One other thing I'd like to say, if you do know somebody who find themselves in a pregnancy situation, we do help at Lifeline Resources with baby items up to 24 months. We do diapers, formula, maternity clothes, and anything having to do with mommies and babies, strollers, pack and plays, whatever. We are more than glad to help them. There is no charge for any of our services. Like I said, we're all volunteers, and we're there to serve and to remember that this is a spiritual battle. The only way we're going to get this is on our knees.
Okay, so we'll close our program today with our prayer to Our Lady of Guadalupe, and we'll ask our group here to participate in that prayer. Together, Mary, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and patroness of the Americas, you brought us an end to the human sacrifices on the Aztec altars in the 16th century. So now we ask you to come to our aid and bring an end to the sacrificing of our unborn children on the altar of sexual excess and convenience. Bring us leaders who will respect life from the first moment of conception until natural death. Holy Virgin of Guadalupe, Queen of Peace, save the nations and peoples of this continent. Amen. God bless everyone. Please work to save the unborn.